but housing in general, one of the biggest gaps that we're seeing in housing is how people feel safe in their environment. And so, for instance, when I started this crusade, specifically geared around building safety, it was shared with me that you could have all the tools and support in place, but if people don't feel psychologically safe, they won't access anything that's available to them. And so, if we could just kind of start from the psychological safety aspect, how important is housing to psychological safety?
Mm. So there's a few different ways in which we can look at this. So there's the I could share a bit about what happens, what we see in clinic rooms and in the NHS when we get referrals of people who are experiencing depression or anxiety or more severe mental health illnesses on the more severe end, like psychosis and that sort of thing. Um, but then also just for anyone who has is experiencing housing insecurity and what that brings up. So maybe if I start with the second first and then move to the first one. Um, for those, it's quite a familiar framework, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So you got this frame at the bottom of what Maslow argues is the base of what all um, humans need, and then there's a number of different tiers, and the um, the needs go up, or rather they're the next needs, but on a kind of a lower banding, but there's a peak point. Um, and at the very base, so that the base of what humans need in he argues is housing, amongst there's housing, I think it's like relationships, a few other things. And the and I just wanted to say that housing is quite a broad phrase. I think really what we're talking about is a place, a roof, stable roof over your head, that's consistently there. And I think you know homelessness, I think, has also broadened. We're not just talking about folks living on the streets. We're also talking about folks living in cars. We're also talking about sofa surfing, um, and without that, and I guess because what we're saying, I mean, the research is clear on this, that without that base of a stable roof, a stable place to live, um, all other concerns then are deprioritized. To put it simply, food to eat and a place to live. It's and I guess if I then bring it back to the first point, is that when I work with people, and I think I can speak for many, if not most, if not all of my colleagues who've worked with folks who do not have stable housing, despite whatever the referral from a GP or from a family member or whatever says, that person will come and say the biggest thing, one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing in my mind, is I need a place for me and my kids to live. I need help with that. And there's and these are cases, I can think of cases where there have been multiple abuses that this person has faced, cases where um, there is their health is really declining. I need a place to live, and it's it's important to mention not just I need a place to live, but then also, and I'm sure we'll come into it a bit later, but insecure housing as well, and what that brings up in people. Because sometimes I see folks, and many times I see folks who do have housing of some kind, but they don't know for how long. And so the next question is, I don't know what's going to happen to me at the end of the month. So now what? So I guess the word I guess I might keep coming back to is the idea of stable and feeling stable. Um, and without secured housing, how as a baseline, how everything else is hard to, it's difficult for anything else to be built on top of someone's sense of life, I suppose.